Hello everyone, welcome back to another and our final episode of Season 3, Faith for Dummies, with me, Rob, and Izzy. Hi Izzy.
Hi Rob. Oh, it's the last one. Sad times.
Do you have a little dummy moment for us, please?
I do. Just a really silly one. So I live at my friend's house, but I spend a lot of time at my fiance's house, but I don't sleep here because we don't live together, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I constantly forget to take things from one house to another. I'm sure I've said it before. I drove back the other day. It was about 10 p.m. Drove back to the house that I sleep in and got there and I thought, oh, great, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning. I've got my gym kit. Brilliant. And then I looked down at my feet. I remembered I hadn't put my trainers on. I hadn't even put my regular, like everyday Converse trainers on. I put my Birkenstock sandals on. I didn't have any trainers in the car and I can't really go to the gym in Birkenstocks. So safe to say I didn't go to the gym the next day.
That's funny. I actually think there was one time when I went to a gym and I was in like smart shoes or something. That sounds vaguely familiar.
I did see a man on the treadmill the other day wearing joggers and a shirt, like a button-down shirt. So each to their own, Rob.
Yeah, he forgot his kit, clearly.
Absolutely. Have you got a dummy moment?
I do, but it's one from about 6 years ago because
oh, okay.
I have an archive of moments that I've written down. I thought this would be a good one. Good users. So before my wife and I lived where we live and go to church, I had the same job that I have now, but we lived half an hour away and we were in a rush to leave because we're late people and that is something we are trying to work on. And I can't remember the exact order of this, but I put my shoes on, I got to the car and we leave bang on 10:01, so we've got 1 minute to kind of make up to get there bang on time. And so we get to church and we're in the worship, whatever, and all of a sudden I'm sat down on the back row and I look down at my shoes and I'm wearing two black shoes, except they're not a pair, they're two different black shoes. And maybe if I'm feeling confident enough to show you all, I'll put the picture on Instagram, but I looked down and took a picture and here is me wearing, I'm showing Izzy, two different black trainers that are slightly different.
To be fair to Rob, they're very similar. Like
they are, aren't they?
Two pairs of trainers that looked almost exactly identical, except if I saw them in real life, I would very much be able to tell they were different.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a dummy moment. I took them off and was so embarrassed that I spent the rest of church that day going around barefoot. And thankfully, I didn't have an evening group because we used to stay there during the day or go to someone's house if we had something to do in the evening rather than go home. But no, we were able to go home after church and be like, let's never talk about that again or say it on a podcast. So there we go.
Brilliant. Well, there we go.
Anyway, what we did today, Izzy?
Today, we have an interview that I did with one of our friends, Jess. Jess is a vicar in a place called Letchworth, and she's brilliant. She's just a brilliant human being. We know her from camp. And if you know her in real life, you'll know how great she is. But it was such a great interview. I found it very encouraging, very down to earth, and just a different kind of testimony than we've had before. So I found it really exciting.
Great. I have nothing to say yet, so let's go to the interview and then we will come back.
Great.
Take it away.
Thanks so much, Rob and Izzy, in the studio. I am here with Jess, our friend Jess McLaren. She is a vicar and we've known each other for a couple of years now. And I just thought we would chat to her about her testimony. I love Jess's testimony. It's a great story to hear and a little bit different to some of the testimonies that we've had before. So that's what we're going to do today. But first of all, Jess, will you tell us where you're from, what you do, and if you have any dummy moments, please feel free to share them.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess. It's great to be here. Great to be talking to Izzy. I live in a place called Letchworth, which is in Hertfordshire. And I've lived here for nearly 6 years. And I'm the vicar of a local church here, which is wonderful. And a dummy moment, Izzy, I think that's got to be dropping my dog to my mum recently and realising when I got him there that I hadn't bought any food for him for the duration of his stay. Thank God there's shops that I could just go to. Make sure that my dog would be fed for the week. But yeah, that's maybe just an indication of what I'm like sometimes.
Nice. Jess works very, very hard. I don't think that's a surprise that you forgot your dog's food. At least you remember the dog.
Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes I do wonder if he's there, but he was there and I got him safely to her house. So that was a bonus.
Very nice. Very nice. You have a very cute dog as well. He's absolutely adorable.
I do. He is the best.
So, Jess, how do we know each other?
Yeah, so Izzy, we met a couple of summers ago, didn't we? We met at Danehill at the youth camps that we're part of. And yeah, that was my first summer back in quite a few years. So yeah.
Yeah, that was my first summer ever, so we must have met there.
Oh wow. Wow, there we go then.
There we go. Great. So Jess, we wanted to ask you about your testimony, but would you tell us kind of a bit about what life was like for you growing up, and in terms of church stuff and God stuff, and at what point you decided, or at what point did Jesus come into your life as a proper real thing for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I come from quite a chaotic background in many ways. It's wonderful, but I'm one of 7 children, so my household was always busy, and my parents both worked hard. And I went to Sunday school as a child. So my mum is a Christian. She would take us to church, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going out. And then I hit about 10 years old. The group that me and my twin sister were part of, we were going to have to move up to the next age group, and we just weren't feeling it. And there were other things happening in our lives, different groups that we could be part of, different things we could do at weekends. And quite soon after that, I just stopped going to churches regularly and just kind of went at Easter and probably at Christmas. So through my teenage years, I wasn't going regularly at all. It was quite a really difficult period in my life. As I said already, I'm a twin, and my other 2 closest siblings in age, all 3 of them were badly bullied during their time at secondary school. And it was just a really challenging time. My parents had also taken on a business that meant that they were much busier. My mum had gone from being at home quite a lot and kind of being a stay-at-home mum and being there for us when we came home from school, to being out quite a bit because this business was just taking a lot of their time. Yeah, so my teenage years felt quite lonely and quite hard to process, because I just couldn't understand why this was happening to 3 of my siblings. And yeah, it was heavily impacting their lives, and it was hard for me to see this happening to them. And church just didn't really factor in that time. I've got to say, I've always had a faith. I've never ever not believed that God exists. But in those years, I just felt really distant from God, and like, why is this happening, and why can't I stop this from happening for my siblings? So yeah, I just continued. I went on to college, and that was really good, actually. It was a really good move for me. It was a really good move for my twin sister. It got us out of that school environment, and we both flourished there. And then I went on to university. Again, I remember, like, other students were going to church on the weekends, and I was just completely detached. I just found it really strange, actually, that they went to church and chose to go to church on Sunday mornings while we were at university. And then after university, when I had to get a job and live an adult life, I got quite ambitious, I guess you could say. Like, I just wanted to achieve. I wanted to do really well, and lots of doors opened for me. And at the age of 25, I started working for a marketing company, and in a really short space of time, I got promoted, and then I got promoted again, and very quickly I found myself in management. But what was kind of happening alongside that was, there's got to be more to life than this. I was just starting to feel a real void in my life. Like, who am I? And why have I got all these things? Like, I'm earning a really good salary. I can afford really nice holidays. I can have a nice car. I've got like prospects ahead of me. Like, I know that in that company I could have kept going up and up in the management team, and I was good at what I did. But I had this feeling that I couldn't shake, that there was just something really missing in my life, and I didn't feel happy. I just didn't feel fulfilled. And some people describe it like a void in their heart. And I had a few really amazing friends, and they were both Christians. One of them is a good friend of mine from my college days, and one of them was a good friend from right from the beginning of school. She was my twin sister's best friend, actually. And they just started speaking into my life. And they didn't give up, and they persisted. So one of the friends was getting married, and I was going to be one of her bridesmaids, and she just used that as a way to be like, I really want you to come. I think it'd be really good for you to get to know the church before the service. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to do this. I can't really tell you why I was so resistant, but I was like, I'm washing my hair, Joe. I can't come. Find every excuse I could possibly find. And then, eventually I said, all right, I'll come. And to that point, my church experience had been kind of like what we call middle of the road. So like evangelical, but traditional as well. So like a choir, that kind of thing. And I hadn't experienced like more contemporary style of church. And I remember I went to an evening service and I walked through the doors of her church, and there was like, it was set up for coffee time before the service. And so there was lots of people. One of the things I noticed straight away when I walked through the door was like, wow, there's a lot of young people here. And I walked in and I had this experience where I felt like it wasn't scary. It was a really moving moment where I just felt like my feet were almost stuck to the ground. I stood still, and I felt like this tangible sense that I was being wrapped in these massive arms and being given a big hug. I remember just being filled with this real sense of love and hope and comfort. And as I looked around the church in that moment at the people that were there having their teas and coffees and chatting away, they were all like illuminated like light bulbs. And I came out of that moment and I didn't like question it. I didn't deny it. I just stored it. I didn't immediately talk to people about it.
That's really cool.
I know. It was amazing. And that's what happened. And I know it was real. And it changed my life on the spot. So, the way I now describe that was that I was filled with the Holy Spirit. I walked through the doors of that church and I was filled with the Holy Spirit. And in the weeks that came, I just kept going back to that church. And then other things started to happen in my life. Like, I think when you realise that there's something missing in your life, you can try and avoid it, you can try and deny it, you can try and find things to fill it. But I believe that when that's God's call on your life, you're not going to achieve that. He's going to keep seeking you and coming after you to find you. And I believe that eventually will take us to a place of surrender. And so for me, what happened was I'd been out with some friends. I was really struggling. I was, just couldn't shake this feeling. And I remember driving back. I was in the car on my own and I was on a roundabout and it was pouring with rain and I was at a red light. And I remember the roundabout. I remember the moment and I just cried out to God. I just said, please help me. And I really believe like that prayer was heard and that it was from that moment these things started to happen in my life.
So from that prayer, it wasn't necessarily an immediate response, but actually like those little things were happening. And that's when you after that is when you eventually stepped foot in that church.
Yeah. It probably wasn't long after that because they were all kind of, my friends saying come, and my other friend that was speaking into my life, it was all kind of going on around it and had led to that moment where I was just like, okay, let's just go. Why am I making excuses? Like, just do this, go be there for my friend, honor her as her bridesmaid. So yeah, anyway, I kept going back to that church as I was saying, and I remember just feeling this immense release in my life. I've often described it like, imagine like you're traveling through life and you are just taking on more and more baggage. Sometimes I describe it like a train. Imagine that you are journeying through life, but you're not just yourself. You're dragging all of this weight behind you all of the time. And coming to faith, coming to know Jesus for myself was like all of that being released. So I just had a joy and I felt life like I'd never felt it before. I remember I used to go into work on a Monday morning and people would say to me around me at my desk, like, you went to church, didn't you, yesterday? Like they could see this like transformation happening in my life. And I remember my sister saying I looked 10 years younger. I don't think I do now, but I did at the time. I was just alive. Like, just imagine that, like, like it's like being like a newborn again, like exactly, how we often describe it. It's like being born again, like, and I just had this amazing passion and desire to live for Jesus and to do what I could in his church and throughout the world, to share what I have with other people. And that's what I've been seeking to do ever since.
So because you were in your kind of mid to late 20s then at that point, what were the kind of the big things in your life that changed? So as in, I know that you've talked spiritually about how you felt that changed, but kind of practically, if someone's listening to this and they think my life looks nothing like a Christian life, what kind of things changed in your practical day-to-day life?
Yeah, so like I still have many of the friends that I had from before, but like my lifestyle changed quite drastically. So I used to socialize. I'm not saying I don't socialize now, but I guess I socialize differently. Like I made new friends through the church, and I just be blunt. I stopped drinking as much, and I stopped finding things to fill the gaps and the void in my life that was there before, and I stopped chasing after things that weren't good for me. And church became a really important part of my life, and I started volunteering and getting involved very quickly. So I would go every Sunday, but I also did courses in the week when I could. And I remember like describing it to people like being refilled like a battery. Like church was just such an important part of my life straight away. I needed that feeding, I needed that time. So yeah, my life changed quite drastically to those around me. But I was so much happier. That so much of what I was doing before was like in this attempt to feel happy, to feel fulfilled, and it wasn't fulfilling, and it didn't make me happy.
Yeah, I think often I found this when I became a Christian. I had thought wrongly maybe that becoming a Christian would take things away from my life and would kind of mean I had to follow a certain set of rules or a certain way of living. And actually, like you're saying, it added something to my life, and going to church and meeting that community, whilst I still did some of the old things, that they were the things I wanted to do more, and I wanted to be filled with God, and I wanted to go to Bible studies, and I wanted to go and sing worship songs with people because they filled me up. They were just adding things. And yes, there were new kind of rules to follow, as it were, but I was joyful in doing that, in obeying, because I had this filling up constantly from God.
I think it's really important to say it didn't happen overnight. Like there were things still, there were still things that were pulling me back, and there were still things that I couldn't quite just step away from immediately. And that time in your life, it doesn't always just snap into a new way of being. Like, I still dated guys that weren't good for me, or I still sometimes would drink too much or be pulled back into ways that I knew weren't good ways for me. I feel really strongly it's not about rules, it's about God's goodness for us, his intentions for us, which are good, and he wants us to have life in all its fullness. So I think a lot of people, like I agree with you, I hear a lot of people think, oh, but if I become a Christian, like, is my life going to be boring? Far from it. Some of the most amazing things that happened to me after I came to faith, I went to Uganda on a mission trip. I remember cycling to Paris. I trained to cycle. I got on a bike, hadn't been on a bike for 10 years. And I had to train in 3 months and cycle to Paris. Like, I had so much life in me and so much joy. So yeah, it was my life is far from boring. It's fulfilled. And that's just so lovely, because that's what Jesus promises us.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say as well, Jess is like one of these people who, when you meet her and she tells you that she's a vicar, you're like, oh, okay, you must be, really prim and proper and get everything right. And I think I am just always so encouraged by your testimony, but also the way that you live your life, because you're not preaching to be perfect. You're not trying to tell people they have to be perfect before Jesus. But what you're saying is, like, we can come before him however we are. And actually, you're still going to have times in life where you feel tempted or where you make the wrong choices. And maybe those temptations and choices are different than they were when you became a Christian. Maybe there are some things you have moved away from fully, or that you just never get tempted by anymore. But actually, we're still human. And I think you do really, really well at kind of sharing that side of your life with people who know you and making people realize that knowing Jesus is not about being perfect. And I find that so encouraging.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so, because I think the best thing we can be for each other is real, and just share our vulnerabilities and the things that we find difficult. Actually, when we strive for perfection in the way that we are Christians, we will only ever fail. The Bible says that his strength is perfected in our weakness. So he is so gracious to us. And I just think I am just so thankful for that Bible verse, because it just reminds me all the time that I can come as I am, and that he will do things through me that I can't even believe that are possible, and that I haven't got the strength to do myself, and that I shouldn't have the strength to do myself because I'm not God.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think just one last question I'd love to ask, and it might be that this is the wrong question to ask, and that's fine. But you talked earlier about how God kind of showed you like a vision when you stepped in that church and you saw those people as like lights and that you felt like you were being hugged. And you've also talked about the Bible speaking to you as well. Could you just share some of the ways that God or the Holy Spirit does speak to you? It doesn't have to be like a fully perfect list of ways, but just to encourage people different ways that God may be speaking to them if they would listen.
Yeah, so I think it's really important as well that I say that, you know, what happened when I walked into that church has not been a frequent occurrence in my life ever since. You know, some people do have regular visions and moments like that. I haven't, but I have had things like that happen since. I think one of the ways God has clearly spoken to me is through my friends and people around me that speak into our lives. And you know, I believe that God does that. They discern something to share with us. I think friends are the best people to help us stay on path and to just stay on track. So definitely friendships, and you have to weigh that up. You know, you have to just really take what they say and really think, do I believe this is God speaking through them? And quite a lot of the time, I believe it is. I think another way that God really speaks to me is through creation. So thank God for my dog, who I walk most days, and just how much things actually come to me when I'm moving. Quite often for me, when I'm sat still, like almost squeezing my eyes shut, saying, come on, God, speak to me, please. It doesn't happen in those moments. It happens in the moments where I'm moving and, you know, I might see something that just really speaks to me. So like I can give you an example. When I started training, I had to go to a college in Nottingham. So I relocated to Nottingham. And it was difficult for me. Like, I hadn't been a Christian very long when I went into training to be a vicar. I'd only been a Christian for 3 years. So I felt really out of my depths when I turned up to college, and I felt like, what am I doing here? I've just felt like an imposter. And I remember one day sitting on the grounds, and there was this amazing oak tree, huge oak tree. And then next to it had been planted a new, do you call it a sapling? Like,
yeah,
I don't even know what you call it, but a new tree had been planted. And as I sat and as I observed this big oak tree, and then this new tree, I just felt God really speak to me through that he is the big oak tree. Like, and I just sat and just felt so comforted by the fact that this is God. He is so big and all-knowing and all-powerful, and that it was okay for me to be that little tree that is growing.
Yeah,
you know, so that's just an example. Like, God speaks to me through creation. God speaks to us through worship and singing quite often. I think God speaks to us through talks that we might hear at church. I know that people also hear from God through normal, like music, not normal, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
music. I think there's loads. I think sometimes children do things that really speak to me, and I can sense God using them to get through to me. So I just think my encouragement is be open and look for God in all things, because he is in all things, and so he can speak through all things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jess. This was such an encouraging talk. But thank you so much for coming to chat to us and for sharing your testimony. If you know Jess in real life, then do chat to her at camp or wherever you might see her. I'm sure she'd love to share more of this with you. And if you have any questions for her, I'm sure she'd love to answer them. But yeah, we're going to end that here, and I will pass back to Rob and Izzie in the studio. Thank you so much, Jess.
Oh, you're welcome.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Jess. Thanks for all that you shared. And thanks, Izzie, for interviewing her. Izzie, any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I actually wanted to add something that Jess voice noted me afterwards. She just, afterwards, she said one of the things that she hadn't shared was that she often refers to her own story, her own testimony, as like the prodigal son story from the Bible, where the son walks away and he squanders his wealth and he squanders all of the stuff that the father gave him. But then when he comes back, the father welcomes him back with open arms. And Jess said that's how she feels her story went, that she'd kind of squandered everything that Father God had given her, and then she came back and he had open arms ready to receive her, and you know, everything that's happened has happened since then. So she often refers to her story as the prodigal daughter, which I just thought was really beautiful. Aww. And I just think it's so lovely when there's something in scripture that really resonates with you or with your story with God. So I just thought thought I would share that from her.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard her say that before, so it's really nice. I'm glad that she shared that.
Yeah, no, I think I just love how honest she is, and I don't know how much of it came through in the podcast. I hope it did, but I think I said Jess is the kind of person who she won't sugarcoat stuff. She'll always be really honest with you, and she's the kind of person that would probably, you know, challenge you if you needed challenging, encourage you if you needed encouraging. But she's just brilliant to have deep conversations with about God. And I love that her relationship with God has always been really honest, that she walks away. But when she came back, she was just really open and honest with God. And, you know, she told him that she wanted to hear from him, and she did. And I just think that's really cool.
That is really cool. And if you're out there thinking you want to hear from God, tell him. Say, God, I want to hear from you. And you're probably not going to get an audible voice, I'm afraid, but chances are God will speak to you somehow. So just encourage you there if that's you. But yeah, I wrote down a lot of things that spoke to me that, and how great is it that Jess actually lives 20 minutes away from me, and we didn't know until about a couple of years ago, and we're like, oh, no way. So that's cool. I've been to see Jess and in her church and a church community cafe. So yeah, that's great. I think something that she said reminded me of something that George said in his testimony episode, which was, George said it was like he was seeing everything in black and white. And then he woke up one morning and he saw it was like everything was in colour. She said something very similar. Yeah. And I just thought the similarity there was quite cool. And you, Izzie, sum it up quite well with when you talk about being joyous and how you thought it would take away, like being a Christian would take away from you, but it doesn't. And also, Jess and I actually went to the same college that she's talking about in Nottingham, the same time, the same year, but we never crossed paths with each other, so we never actually knew each other.
How weird.
And I know, and I know that oak tree that she's on about, and it is massive.
Was that at Theology College?
Yeah, that's right. So I was doing
nearly went there. I was so close to going. So there we go. Must be a great place.
Yeah, I remember that oak tree. That's what I was going to say.
Nice, cool. Well, thank you, Jess, so much for chatting with us. Yeah, we really loved this interview, and we've really loved all of the interviews that we've had this season. We're so thankful to our friends and to those who have come on and chatted about a topic or their testimony. It's just such a joy when we get to do this podcast with other people as well. So we really hope that you've been blessed by the things that we've talked about this season and the things that other people have shared. Yeah, absolutely. Just echo what you said. Thanks to everyone. So Izzie and I have a meeting very soon to talk about season 4, where we can give you some dates and stuff. So just keep an eye out on social media or whatever, just to know when stuff is coming back. But we will be back, and thank you all for listening. We're very grateful. It will be a very different podcast if you weren't there to listen to it. and yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year when it comes. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you, everyone. We will be back. Bye, everyone. Bye, Izzie.